Picture a farmer in Ming Dynasty China holding a length of bright yellow silk. The cloth is for sale and his to wear tomorrow. At least, that's how you'd expect it to work. Wear that yellow in public, though, and soldiers could haul him in and beat him with a heavy bamboo rod because that shade belonged to one man, the emperor. In imperial China, the finest things weren't just expensive. They were illegal for you specifically. These are the foods, colors, and objects the law put out of reach, and what happened when someone reached anyway. So how does a bolt of cloth end up as evidence in a criminal case? The rules had a name. Historians call them sumptuary laws, regulations that fixed what every rank could wear, eat, build, and ride, and imperial China wrote the strictest set the world has ever seen. Number 1. The color yellow. We think of yellow as cheerful and ordinary. In imperial China, it was the most tightly guarded color in the empire. Yellow sat at the center of the old five-element cosmology, the color of earth and of the sun, and the sun stood for the emperor himself. Under the Tang emperor Gaozong, who ruled from 649 to 683, commoners were forbidden to wear a specific reddish-yellow shade the throne had claimed for itself. His successors banned officials from it too. By the Ming and Qing, the rule had hardened into something absolute. One exact hue, a bright yellow the Qing called Ming Huang, belonged to the emperor and almost no one else. Even his own family stepped down a shade. The crown prince wore apricot yellow. Lower princes were assigned blue, and the color followed him everywhere. The emperor's carriage was the yellow cart. The road cleared for him was the yellow path. The seal of the whole dynasty was wrapped in yellow silk. To the court, a farmer in that same yellow was doing something closer to treason than fashion. He was laying visible claim to the throne, and the law treated it that way. Yellow was the top of the ladder. But the ladder ran all the way down, and every rung was a color. Number 2. The colors of everyone below him. Here is where it gets systematic. In the year 630, the Tang court sorted official robes into a fixed color code by rank. Officials of the 1st to 3rd rank wore purple. 4th and 5th rank wore scarlet. 6th and 7th wore green. 8th and 9th wore blue. Everyone with no rank, which meant the overwhelming majority of the population, was left with undyed white or plain cloth. The colors were policed so tightly that in 674, the emperor had to issue a fresh decree cracking down on commoners who were sneaking the forbidden shades under their outer garments. This is where a phrase you might still hear comes from. In Chinese, hongdefazi means so red you turn purple. It started as a literal description of an official climbing the ranks, whose robe changed from scarlet to purple as he was promoted. Today, it just means wildly successful. The Ming went after the fabric itself. Commoners were banned from silk, satin, and brocade. Farmers got a narrow exemption in 1381, but with a catch. If a single member of the household took up trade, the silk was off-limits for the whole family. Merchants had money, and the state was determined they would not be allowed to look like it. Break these rules, and you entered the empire's punishment ladder. The 5 punishments, 10 to 50 strokes with a light bamboo cane, 60 to 100 strokes with a heavy one, 1 to 3 years of hard labor, exile, and at the very top, death. That was only round 1. Because the most dangerous thing you could put on your body was not a color at all. It was an animal. Number 3. The 5-clawed dragon. Every emperor's robe carried dragons, and the dragon was pure power. But the court did something clever with it. It turned the number of claws into law. By the Qing, the 5-clawed dragon, called the Long, belonged to the emperor and his immediate family, and to no one else. Princes and high nobles were allowed a four-clawed version called the mang, and here is the detail that tells you how seriously they took this. A Qing source of the period described the mang as almost identical to the emperor's dragon, except for the removal of one claw, one fewer claw, and it wasn't a lesser dragon, it was a different animal, a python, which is what the word mang literally means. That is the whole system in a single design choice. The emperor could grant a favored official the right to an extra claw, and he often did, which meant the exact same robe could be legal on one man and a crime on another, depending entirely on whether the throne had signed off. By 1759, the Qing had gone further still, reserving a set of 12 sacred symbols for the emperor and empress alone. Wearing the emperor's own dragon without his blessing meant impersonating the Son of Heaven, and deceiving or challenging the throne was one of the gravest crimes in the code, punishable by strangulation or beheading. We're halfway through, and it only gets stranger from here. Drop a comment and tell us which of these restrictions surprises you most so far. So far, we've stayed on the body. The next line the law drew was bolted to the roof over your head. Number 4, the roof over your head. Your clothes could betray you. So could your house, because the law reached architecture too. Start with color again. Those glittering golden roofs on the Forbidden City are yellow glazed tile, and yellow tile was reserved for imperial buildings. The Ming Code restricted it to palaces, imperial tombs, and a handful of sanctioned temples, and the Qing building manual went line by line, fixing exactly which structure inside a palace complex could use which grade of yellow. Then there is the shape. The highest grade of roof, a sweeping hip roof, was kept for the most important buildings, and the throne hall of the Forbidden City, the Hall of Supreme Harmony, wore the top of every scale at once. It was the tallest building in the empire, and no one was permitted to build anything higher. Now look at the roofline. Along the eaves of important buildings marched little glazed beasts, a dragon in front leading a procession of mythical animals, and their number was set by rank. 9 was the ceiling, but the Hall of Supreme Harmony carries 10. That 10th beast, a small winged figure, sits on that one roof and nowhere else in China. Even the studs on the doors were counted. Imperial gates carry 9 rows of 9 golden nails, 81 in total, because 9 was the number of the emperor. A commoner's home could not legally wear a single one of these features. The building itself was a rank badge you lived inside. If you're enjoying this, take a second to subscribe. We break down the hidden machinery of Asian wealth and power every week. So we've covered what you wore and where you lived. What landed on your table was policed just as hard, and this is where the punishment turned public. Number 5, the food on your table. This is the part our long-time viewers have already met, but here we want the law behind it. Sumptuary rules did not stop at silken roof tile. They ran straight through the kitchen. The luxury ingredients of the empire, the ones that took ocean voyages and cliff climbs and days of preparation, were bound into a hierarchy that placed the emperor at the top and left commoners with the plainest fare by custom and by code. Enforcement worked through the same machinery as everything else. The Great Ming Code, written under the Hongwu Emperor, a former peasant who became obsessed with fixing everyone in place, ran to 460 articles, and it included a catch-all, punishing anything that ought not to be done, according to reason. That single clause let a magistrate come down on an overreach the code had never spelled out, with up to 80 strokes for the serious version. For a commoner or a merchant caught feasting above his station, the sentence came from that same ladder, the heavy bamboo across the back, or 1 to 3 years of hard labor. and the point was rarely the pain by itself. A beating handed out in front of your neighbors did something the pain alone could not. It erased your claim to status in public, in front of everyone whose opinion of you mattered. There was one more line the law drew, and it looks small until you see what it was really measuring. It measured how many men it took to carry you. Number 6. The way you were carried. By the Ming and Qing, the sedan chair was the status vehicle, a covered seat slung between poles and lifted by bearers, and the law read it like a dashboard. The signal was the number of bearers. A commoner's chair was carried by 2 men. Ranking officials rode in chairs carried by 4 or 8, graded by office, and the colour of the drapery marked rank 2, with ordinary officials in plain blue. Even the high ranks were capped. The official history of the Ming recorded that officials above the 3rd rank were not to use more than 4 bearers, and any violation had to be reported to the emperor personally. The name for the grandest version, the 8-bearer chair, survives in Chinese today as shorthand for pomp and ceremony, and the rules reached into the most personal day of your life. The bright red bridal sedan, richly carved and lacquered, was an honor reserved for a man's principal wife. A concubine or a remarried widow was not permitted it and rode in a plain, unadorned chair instead. Rank decided what you wore and where you slept. It also decided how your feet left the ground. For more than 1,000 years, this held. The color, the dragon, the roof, the chair, all of it locked in place by law. Then it ended, fast. In October 1911, the Xinhai Revolution broke out, and within months, the Qing dynasty collapsed. On February 12, 1912, the last emperor, a 6-year-old boy named Puyi, abdicated, ending more than 2,000 years of imperial rule. The new republic, led by Sun Yat-sen, threw out the clothing hierarchy outright. For the first time, anyone could wear anything, any color, any fabric, whatever they could afford. That same year, an order went out to cut the queue, the braided hairstyle the Qing had forced on every man for nearly 3 centuries. And the state that had once dictated the shade of your coat lost the power to dictate anything about your body at all. Which brings us back to that farmer and his bolt of yellow silk. Today, you can buy that exact yellow in any market. You can order a 5-clawed dragon printed on a t-shirt or rent an 8-bearer chair for a wedding, and no magistrate will lay a hand on you. The dyes and the symbols are all still here. What vanished was the law that turned them into weapons. For most of Chinese history, a coat or a bowl of soup could tell you exactly who a person was allowed to be, and stepping over that line could land you in front of a magistrate. Every society with a ruling class has found ways to show it off. What set imperial China apart was that it wrote that display into law and put a bamboo rod behind it. Which dynasty's hidden rules should we open up next? Tell us in the comments and subscribe so you don't miss it.